There's something kind of special about games made in the 90s. It was a period where developers could pretty much get away with anything, because the industry was small enough that it really didn't warrant that much attention. Case in point is Blood, developed by Monolith Productions and published by GT Interactive in 1997. A few weeks ago I reviewed Blood 2 and I thought it was prudent for me to review its predecessor, considering in a lot of ways it is a far superior experience. This is a classic tale of revenge where you play the role of Caleb, a gunslinging badass with some serious personal issues. Caleb is betrayed by a cult known as the Cabal, his friends are killed and he is buried alive. After an indiscriminate amount of time, Caleb rises from his grave and seeks out vengeance.
I live again.
He's voiced by a dude called Stephen Waite, who I think may be one of the most underappreciated and underrated voice actors in video games. The performance this guy gives is nothing short of legendary, and every line, quip, and sound is spot on.
Hey, she-bitch, let's go.
Even the way he screams in comical agony when lit on fire is absolutely brilliant. As was the style for 90s FPS games, the story is broken up into multiple episodes, with 7 or 8 levels per sequence. The player is also given a choice of difficulty modes, which not only affect the amount of enemies, but also their hit points and the amount of damage they dish out. There are real differences between these modes, and the choices can have a serious repercussion on the overall experience. His journey will take him through a vast selection of locations, all of which are blatant references and homages to both classic and contemporary horror films and literature. The long and short of it is that this is a game really not meant to be taken seriously. There's references to Army of Darkness, The Crow, Phantasm, and even Shakespeare's Macbeth.
Out, damn spot.
And that's only in the first level. There's a sequence of environments set in the Arctic which are a direct reference to Stephen King's The Shining, complete with hedge maze and haunted hotel. An area in the 4th episode features a forest, cabin, and lake not too dissimilar to that from Friday the 13th. Zombies moan for brains, severed hands skitter across the ground to strangle the player, and Caleb laughs like a sadist as he literally blows off the skin from his enemies with a flung dynamite stick. But everything here is in good fun and larger than life, and the game is a memento of sorts to the source materials to which it so brazenly alludes. Caleb's weaponry is among the most original you're likely to see in any game. He starts off with nothing but a pitchfork, but soon gets his hands on a flare gun, dynamite bundles, a sawn-off shotgun, and eventually some truly devastating weaponry such as napalm launchers and even a Tesla gun, which shoots rapid balls of electricity with deadly precision. These weapons all have their strengths and weaknesses when used against certain enemies. The shotgun and Tommy gun, for instance, are more suited to the robed cultists, where things like the napalm launcher and Tesla gun make short work of bigger enemies like gargoyles. Some other weapons like the voodoo doll and the life leech are included more for novelty value, as they offer little in terms of usefulness, though they fit in more with the theme of the game rather than their use in a firefight. There's also a few one-use power-ups like the akimbo guns, which mirror the Hong Kong action flicks of the 80s, as well as something called reflective shot, which bounces bullets back at Caleb's attackers, but these are few and far between and often fairly well hidden. Considering how old and dated the build engine is, it is still quite amazing that this game looks as good as it does. It's not technically outstanding by any means, but the uniqueness of the art style, particularly with explosions and fire effects, is truly remarkable. Monolith have always had a good understanding of how to make a solid FPS game, and this is a testament to that. The limitation of the engine hasn't stopped the level designers from packing as much detail as possible into every single environment. It's the standard key hunting formula that permeated the FPS market back then, but the layout is really top notch and offers lots of diversity. One of my favourite levels is the Dark Carnival, complete with working carousel and sideshows. I also love the way they work the destructible environments into everything as well. You often have to take a step back and just admire the absurdity of everything. You might have a few cultists, zombies, and gargoyles chasing after you, and then it all comes to a sudden stop as you finish them all off with a napalm round. One of the most satisfying things to do in this game is line up a bunch of enemies and let loose upon them with a stick of dynamite. The only real negative point with Blood is that its subject matter gives it something of a limited appeal. It's great fun if you're into that sort of thing, but if you're fairly young, a lot of it might sort of fly over your head. On top of that, it's also a really hard game at times. It's from the days of medkit pickups, which means if you get low on health and ammo, you can end up in a really bad spot. Enemies also have pinpoint accuracy and can whittle away at your health even from the other side of the map. The later episodes are noticeably easier because you get your hands on most of the more powerful weapons earlier on, but the first episode is definitely difficult, to the point of being just flat out annoying. It can also take a while to get used to some of the mechanics, like the physics of throwing dynamite, or the splash damage from shooting napalm rounds, but that kind of epitomizes the 90s FPS. They were always hard games, but they weren't trying to appeal to a mass market like, say, Call of Duty does. Developers could make the game they wanted, how they wanted. Blood is something of a love letter to the horror genre in general, and a perfect example of the way shooters used to be. Yes, it's hard, yes, it's gory, and yes, it borders on bad taste at times, but the underlying factor here is that it never set out to do anything else, and you've got to admire it for that.
Whoa,